Attorney Johnny Sutton, who oversaw the prosecution of former Border Patrol agents Ramos and Compean, testified before a hostile Senate committee last year. He said if the agents had not covered up the shooting of Mexican national Osvaldo Aldrete Davila, an illegal alien drug smuggler, Ramos and Compean would probably not have received 11 and 12-year federal prison sentences.
The reason all of this mess happened is because Agent Compean and Ramos shot an unarmed guy running away and covered it up. If they hadn't done that, they'd still be out on the line doing their job. And even if they told us it was a bad shoot, we don't know where we'd be. They'd probably still be okay.
Monday, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals threw out the agent's convictions for tampering with an official proceeding. It ruled that a Border Patrol internal investigation of alleged employee misconduct is not an official proceeding. But it upheld the convictions for using a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, which carries a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence. Some lawmakers say Congress never intended the gun charge to be used to prosecute law enforcement officers performing their official duties.
This case was so obviously a miscarriage of justice that it can shake people's faith in our system.
The agents remain in prison even though 2 of 3 appellate judges criticized the government's prosecution of the case during a hearing in December. The men's labor union says it's disappointed by the court's decision.
To have such a dramatic reversal in this decision where they essentially buy into Johnny Sutton's argument that it was heard before a jury and they had a fair trial and therefore it stands is just very perplexing.
Attorneys for Ramos and Compean plan to ask for a rehearing by the 3 appellate judges and a so-called en banc review by all 21 Fifth Circuit judges. Ramos' attorney David Botsford tells Lou Dobbs tonight he plans to file a motion for a new trial because prosecutors instructed jurors to give priority to the obstruction of justice charges, which have now been thrown out. If those appeals fail, attorneys can then appeal to the Supreme Court. Members of Congress, meanwhile, are continuing to push for President Bush to simply pardon the agents or commute their sentences. Lou?
Casey, the families of these 2 former agents, this has got to be as dispiriting, as tragic for the families, but the entire U.S. Border Patrol, law enforcement officers serving this nation. This is really one of the ugliest things that I've ever seen happen.
The fact that these agents were prosecuted and received 10-year federal prison sentences for a crime, for a charge that was only supposed to cover drug smugglers and other violent criminals, not law enforcement officers performing the course of their duties, is really dispiriting to the entire law enforcement community, especially those who work along the border where it's increasingly violent. They're increasingly under threat from well-armed Mexican drug smugglers and illegal alien smugglers. It's an absolute travesty in their view, Lou.
Well, the appellate court, in my opinion, I can say this without any reservation whatsoever. These 3 justices, really, these judges, these appellate judges, justice is no part of what they did. Did they even refer to the fact that court upheld the evidence being sealed against these 2 defendants and that this prosecutor and that trial judge at the same time did not let anyone know that the witness who had been given immunity by the prosecutor was at the very moment testifying against these 2 law enforcement officers was committing other crimes as well?
Their 45-page ruling did address those issues, and basically they dismissed them, Lou. They said that it really wouldn't have mattered if the drug smugglers' criminal history had been introduced as evidence in front of the jury. And they said even if it did matter, it might have turned the case into a referendum on the witness, the drug smuggler, and not on the actions of the Border Patrol agents. So that's why they dismissed that as a legitimate grounds for the agents to appeal the convictions, Lou.
Just unbelievable. And it's 7 months to get to this point. You wonder what in the world. We can call it a judiciary system, but we sure can't call it a justice system. I appreciate it, at least not accurately. Casey Wine, thank you very much. Well, a rising number of congressmen tonight are calling upon the president to commute the sentences of Ramos and Compean. 3 of them join me tonight from Capitol Hill. Congressman Ted Poe of Texas, Congressman John Culberson, also of Texas, Congressman Walter Jones of North Carolina. Gentlemen, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Lou.
I'll just say I'm heartsick at this. I know the families are. I know you are. every American who cares about even the meaning of justice to watch this process. I mean, what are we left with in this country when this is the result?
Well, the justice system did not work in this case. These appellate judges just 7 months ago on December the 3rd, 2 of them raked the U.S. Attorney's Office over the coals for prosecuting this case. But they've had a change of heart, and they upheld the conviction. And it's very unfortunate because justice, as you have said, has not been served in this case at all.
And this case illustrates, encapsulates, in fact, Lou, all the problems with our border security. There's an obsession by this administration to pander to Mexico. These agents were prosecuted to make an example of them, and now the obstruction of justice has been thrown out. And in fact, that really just throws out the entire case, because the state of mind of the officer is critical to whether or not they had the right to use their weapon. And the jury was not allowed to even be told the border is dangerous. The jury didn't know that this guy was carrying drugs regularly, and the jury did not know that these officers were familiar with this drug smuggler.
But Congressman, we wouldn't want this to be a referendum on the very witness that the prosecution put forward to impugn the integrity of both of these law enforcement agents. That wouldn't be justice in the minds of this perverted appellate court.
Well, they're obviously wrong, because the credibility of the witness is important in any case, especially when you make a deal with the witness and give him all kinds of benefits. The jury should know everything that took place. He's a suspect witness to begin with, and hiding the truth from the jury is really a miscarriage of justice.
Lou, let me say that, along with my colleagues here tonight, we're not going to let this go.
That's right.
We have just begun to fight, and let me remind you that these 2 men joined me with other members of Congress to ask that the Office of Professional Responsibility look into Johnny Sutton and what he's done to these 2 men and their families. It is absolutely unacceptable. They should have never been indicted.
Well, I think we can all agree upon that as we look at Johnny Sutton there. But here's the reality. I mean, this is Texas justice, is the expression that I'd heard in years past. And unfortunately, two former law enforcement officers are being taken to task, and frankly, the United States is having its nose rubbed in it. And it's your president, folks. He's also from Texas, and I got to say, he is not only, I think, disappointed a nation. He is an embarrassment to this country on every level.
Every American understands that when the drug dealer goes free and sues us, and the law enforcement officers sworn to protect this nation go to jail, something is terribly wrong with border security. And Walter's exactly right. Ted and Walter and I are going to be leading the charge in Congress. We're going to use every legislative tool at our disposal to attempt to get these men out of prison.
Do you really believe there's any chance, gentlemen, in the world that a president that has been this obtuse, this flat-out ignorant, and this absolutely irresponsible, to put it in the kindest words possible, to prosecute 2 law enforcement officers like Ramos and Compean, that he would, through some miracle, find integrity and concern and a sense of justice?
Well, we're asking him to commute the sentences, not pardon them. It's bipartisan. We have many Democrats that are asking him to commute these sentences. They can, the defendants both can go through the appellate process again, but it shows overall, Lou, that our government is on the wrong side of the border war when it relentlessly prosecutes border agents and lets the drug dealers go free.
Lou, let me say real quickly that you're exactly right. I hope the American people feel your outrage, our outrage, and let the president know by calling the White House and say this is unacceptable, this is an injustice, and Mr. President, if you can let Scooter Libby out, do something about this situation.
Absolutely. And Chairman Bill Delahunt, I want to say also, Lou, that the Chairman Bill Delahunt of Massachusetts, a Democrat, has a resolution which we have all co-authored, and we're going to lead a bipartisan effort in Congress to pass a resolution demanding that the Ramos and Compean have their sentences commuted for the same reason that Scooter Libby got his sentence commuted.
Yeah, my job here is to be as straightforward and honest as I possibly can be, and I've got to remind everybody, this may be bipartisan, but there are only a handful of Democrats have signed on or expressed any concern. This is, I respect and appreciate, and I know the families will appreciate everything you're doing. But I got to say, anyone seeking justice at this hour in this case, you got to have a lot more faith than I do. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
We'll never give up.
Coming up next, Senator McCain could support a 16-month timetable for withdrawal of our troops from Iraq. Is this a flip-flop or a change in circumstances? We'll be talking about that And we'll examine Senator Obama's failure to win a bounce in the polls from his overseas trip, or will there be a flip-flop? I'll be talking with three of my favorite radio talk show hosts here next. We'll be right back.